Years after the end of World War II, some truths buried deep in the ocean are still being revealed. In 1991, some ordinary divers came across a site at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean that should not have been there in any way. A German submarine, complete, in a place where there was no record of it. The investigation that followed surprised even historians. When the inside of the sunken ship was finally opened after years of hard work, what was found there was not just metal and debris. There were questions whose answers are still not completely clear. This is the story of U-869, a German submarine that disappeared and was then found years later in the silence of the sea. If you love unraveling hidden mysteries and want to dive deeper into untold stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us on this incredible journey. During the war, German U-boats silently targeted enemies under the waves of the Atlantic. Their goal was to cut off supply lines and break the back of the enemy. Hundreds of submarines were built, most were sunk in battles, some were captured, but there were also some that simply disappeared, like U-869, which is now a mystery. During the final years of World War II, the German Navy built a new, larger submarine, the U-869. The submarine was about 250 feet long and had 6 torpedo launching tubes. It was designed to travel long distances and attack enemy ships across the Atlantic. Captain Helmut Neuberg was aboard, a ship with considerable naval experience. In late 1944, as the tide of war tilted against Germany, U-869 was given its first mission. According to records, it was directed to Gibraltar, a route through which many Allied ships passed. But Germany's military system was increasingly confused, with orders coming from many different places and coordination at odds. It is believed that the submarine's mission may have changed en route. On February 11, 1945, an American destroyer and a Coast Guard boat attacked a German submarine near Gibraltar. They thought they had sunk an enemy U-boat. Based on the timing and other information, it was assumed that the sunken submarine was U-869. The German Navy had disintegrated by then, so they did not respond to the claim. It happens many times in history that once things are recorded, no one re-examines them for years. Something similar happened with U-869. When this submarine suddenly disappeared, it was assumed that it had sunk near Gibraltar, and 56 sailors also drowned in the sea with it. No emergency message came, nor any surviving evidence was found. There was just a report, and that was considered true. No one questioned it for a long time. It just remained as another line in the record of the war, like many other German submarines that did not return. But when some explorers started looking into it again in depth, doubts arose. First of all, no wreck has been found near Gibraltar to date that matches the structure or size of U-869. The reports of that time were often incomplete because decisions were made in a hurry in the atmosphere of battle, and technology was also limited. Second, Germany also had no concrete records of where U-869 had last made contact or where it had been. By 1945, Germany was in a dire state. Radio links were being lost, documents were lost or destroyed. Even the papers that survived did not clearly explain what had really happened. The most important thing was radio silence. German submarines had to regularly send information about their missions, but U-869's last location was recorded in the North Atlantic, thousands of kilometers from Gibraltar. There was no news after that. It seemed as if the submarine had been lost at sea. As the research progressed, the questions became more pressing. Was U-869 mistaken for another submarine and thought to have been lost? Did it receive new orders en route? Or was there something else, which is still not clear? There are so many things that remain hidden under the sea for years, about which no one knows for sure. Near the east coast of America, in the sea area of New Jersey, there are many old shipwrecks, some due to storms, some sunk in collisions, and some victims of war. In the summer of 1991, some experienced divers entered the sea to search for these wrecks. The team included John Chatterton, Richie Kohler, and some of their companions, who were engaged in searching for unknown wrecks. This was not an easy dive. The depth here, cold water, poor visibility, and strong currents made this task extremely difficult. About 60 miles away, from a place called Point Pleasant, about 230 feet below the depth of the sea, their sonar tracked a long, narrow object. At first glance, it looked like some old weapon or machine, like a torpedo or a submarine. When they first visited, the conditions were challenging: fog, extremely cold water, and a layer of nets covering the wreckage. As they slowly dove around, it became clear that it was a submarine, and a large one. But what was most surprising was that such a submarine should not have been in the area. Questions arose in people's minds. What was it? And how did it get there? The discovery revived the story of U-869, which for years had been presumed to have sunk near Gibraltar. The numbers, names, or flags on any ship or submarine are very important for its identification. But when the divers took a closer look at the sunken submarine, they found nothing like that. No number, no nameplate, no flag, nothing. Its structure was also in very bad condition. The conning tower was crooked, the outer part was broken in many places, and there was rust all around. Now the question was, which country did this submarine belong to? America? Russia? Germany? No one knew. Because there was no identification, the divers gave it a funny name: Yoo-hoo. It had become a mystery. No record said that any submarine had sunk around this place during the Second World War. But still it was here, lying in the silence of the sea for almost 50 years. As interest grew, divers went there several times to investigate. This was not an easy dive. It required a specific gas mix, a periodic ascent according to depth, and a thorough protocol. The slightest carelessness could be fatal, leading to nitrogen intoxication, oxygen poisoning, or dangerous conditions like the bends. But each dive yielded something new. Inside, they found gauges with markings in German and metric units, pipes, valves, and some control devices. It was now clear that this was a German U-boat. But which one? Slowly, small items were found: utensils, tools, and some items bearing the Marine Eagle mark. But no concrete evidence. Then an item was found that changed everything: an old butter knife. It was a little rusty, but it had a name engraved on it: Hornberg. It wasn't a serial number, it was a human name. Divers then dug through old German Navy records and discovered that a crew member named Georg Hornberg was on board U-869. This is where the mystery began to unravel. The divers continued their search not only underwater, but also in old documents. In a later dive, they found some valve manifolds and diesel engine parts, which also had serial numbers on them. They compared these numbers with the records of Deschimag AG Weser, a large German shipyard company. And when they matched, it became clear that this was the same submarine, U-869. This was a really big deal. Ordinary amateur divers had done what official reports from the war could never do. In 1997, 6 years after the first discovery, the U.S. Navy officially acknowledged that the sunken ship found near New Jersey was in fact U-869. This discovery meant a lot. It was now known that U-869 had not sunk near Gibraltar, as American military records were saying, but that it had sunk near the east coast of America, about 3,000 miles away from where history had placed it. The divers proved the truth that had never been recorded on paper. They went and found the wreck of the submarine themselves, and also identified it. But the most surprising thing was that no one here was searching for U-869. If it were not for some passionate amateur divers, the ship would probably still be lying somewhere rusting quietly. The U.S. Navy and historians took note of this discovery. Wreck divers from all over the world considered it one of the greatest discoveries ever made. With no government or military help, just passion, hard work, and hours spent in the depths of the ocean. But one big question still remained. How did U-869 get here? Its mission was to go to Gibraltar. Wartime reports put it near Europe. So how did it end up on this side of the Atlantic? Had it received some new orders? Or was there a communication glitch that led it off course? We have no concrete records left to explain what happened to U-869. The Navy logs were incomplete, and everyone on board, the entire crew, died when the submarine sank. The case went down in history, but the real question remained. When the debris pulled from the water was confirmed as the German submarine U-869, a new question arose. Why did it sink? The answer was as complicated as the question seemed. As divers examined the wreck and historians reviewed old evidence, the confusion grew. Different theories emerged, each with its own evidence, but none could provide a clear answer. The two most popular reasons were U-869 was sunk by its own torpedoes. It was sunk by American warships. Let's start with number one. German torpedoes from World War II were powerful, but they often malfunctioned. One of them was a dangerous problem known as the circle runner. This meant that torpedoes that were supposed to go straight would sometimes spin back toward the submarine because of faulty gyroscopes or controls. And the effect? Damage the submarine. This wasn't just a wishful thinking. This happened many times during the war, and every submarine captain was aware of the danger. Those who support the circle runner theory believe this is what happened to U-869. They say that perhaps a torpedo was released during battle or testing, which changed course and collided with the submarine itself. There is some evidence to support this. First, there is no record that U-869 ever attacked an enemy ship. There are no torpedo launch or hit reports. Second, the wreck showed signs of a massive internal explosion, the kind produced by a torpedo exploding nearby, not a direct hit from the outside. So U-869 may have sealed its own demise. But this is not entirely certain. On the other hand, there is another version that says U-869 was located and sunk by two U.S. Navy ships, USS Howard D. Crowe and USS Coiner. The ships reportedly located the submarine in the area on the 11th of February 1945, possibly using sonar or hydrophones. They then launched a joint depth bombing attack. After the war was over, this was credited as a success in sinking an unidentified German submarine sunk in the area, later identified as U-869. This was the last thing on official U.S. Navy records for a long time. Even when the wreck of U-869 was later found off the coast of New Jersey, the Navy said it was this attack that had caused the submarine to sink. At first glance, this seems obvious, but it raises a number of complex questions. The first question is the timing. U-869 was not expected to be near the East Coast. Its mission was to Gibraltar. If Navy ships had attacked a submarine in that area, why was it not linked to U-869 sooner? The second question is the location of the wreck. The wreckage of U-869 that was found does not match the reported location of USS Howard D. Crowe and USS Coiner. Close enough, but not enough to be sure. Third, sonar examination and the condition of the wreck. Divers who went to examine the wreck found that several torpedo tubes were still plugged. If U-869 was in the fight, why did it not fire its weapons? Was the submarine stranded? As divers spent time inside the deeply submerged submarine, the evidence they found was puzzling. The front was heavily damaged, compressed and bent, as if a great force had been applied. Several of the rooms inside also bore the marks of a powerful explosion, which appeared to have been caused by an explosion from within, not a bomb falling from outside. But the marks on the submarine's outer walls were somewhat weak. It seemed as if there was a pressure wave from the bomb, rather than a direct hit from above. Another striking feature was that the control room and torpedo room were almost intact. The damage was there, but limited. This could mean that the explosion was from within. Perhaps a torpedo exploded or exploded as it was being launched. Most interesting was that the skeletal remains of the crew were scattered, and it appeared that no one had managed to escape. There was no attempt to surface, no emergency signal. Everything happened very quickly and suddenly. Whoever damaged this submarine didn't give the crew a chance. What's more, military records of the time are unclear. U-869 was never suspected to be near the U.S. coast, and the submarine that American ships sank was not properly identified. This could mean there was some misunderstanding on both sides. Maybe USS Howard D. Crowe and USS Coiner sank another submarine, but not U-869. Or U-869 had already sunk due to a faulty torpedo. And yes, both could be wrong. Maybe U-869 was given a secret mission, the orders for which were never recorded. That could be why it was where it shouldn't have been, and there was no radio contact. Maybe that's why its discovery was kept quiet, even years later. As the evidence mounted, the question became more complex. Both theories had some merit, but none were entirely convincing. The real reason for the sinking of U-869 remained a mystery to this day. One thing that continued to bother divers was that the torpedo tubes were blocked. If the submarine had fought, why did it not attack? And if it did fire a torpedo, why was there no record of it? And if it was ambushed by enemies, why were the weapons not used? It is heartbreaking to think that U-869 may have sunk without launching a counterattack. It traveled thousands of miles in stealth, but eventually perished so silently that it could not even respond. And the biggest question that kept coming to mind was, why was this submarine near the U.S. coastline? The answer to this question was found in a completely unexpected way. Just when everyone thought the mystery couldn't get any deeper, divers opened a sealed room, a hidden compartment. For years, divers had examined U-869 at this dangerous depth, but could not reach it due to limited equipment and difficulties. But in late 2024, with new technology and better planning, they finally managed to open what was previously thought to be impossible. And believe me, what they found inside the old Nazi submarine stunned everyone. There was a sealed room, where the walls had sunk and were almost sealed by the effects of age. According to the divers, this room had remained intact since 1945, as if imprisoned in time. Many personal belongings were found in that room. Locked lockers, storage bins, and footlockers, some of which had rubber seals that still had some function. Common Nazi submarine items such as ration boxes, diaries, and clothing were also recovered there. As divers explored the interior, they found something that captured the attention of historians and intelligence agencies alike. One investigator reported finding a distinctive ceremonial dagger belonging to a Nazi Kriegsmarine officer. It had a slogan etched on the blade that was popular among elite naval units. In a watertight box next to it was an old uniform bearing the Iron Eagle symbol and a red armband bearing a swastika, all in better condition than expected. But the real surprise came when they opened another box, hidden under several sealed documents. That box contained a variety of Nazi memorabilia, including a brand-new swastika flag, neatly folded, along with some English-language propaganda leaflets meant to incite hostility among the American public, and a code book bearing the markings of the ABV, Nazi Germany's military intelligence. All this was so shocking that it was never made public. The reason behind this was that maybe U-869 was not just patrolling the sea, but it was sent to deliver agents or essential supplies to American soil. This has not been proven, but the consequences of this can be very serious. If a Nazi submarine was secretly carrying out a mission near America, even in the last phase of the war, then it can completely change our understanding of history. And another thing that has a huge impact on the story, that is survivor's guilt. There were a total of 56 people on board U-869, who are believed to have all died when the submarine sank. But one name was missing from the list of dead: Herbert Gashowski. Herbert was initially selected for the mission, but he was removed from the mission due to falling ill before leave. Another sailor was sent in his place, and U-869 went to sea without him. At first, the change didn't seem like a big deal, just a routine personnel transfer. But that one small decision became the purpose of Herbert Gashowski's entire life. For years, Herbert believed, as did military historians and the families of the men who had lost their lives, that U-869 had met its end near Gibraltar, Spain, and was thought to have been sunk by Allied depth bombs. That was the official record, accepted by the German Navy and post-war historians. But in the 1990s, a group of American divers discovered the remains of a sunken submarine near Point Pleasant, New Jersey. During their investigation, the divers contacted the families of servicemen who had served with the submarine at the time. That led them to Herbert, who was living in Germany, decades away from the war, but still harboring memories of the comrades he had trained with. According to diver and researcher Richie Kohler, Herbert initially could not believe it when he was told that U-869 had been found not near Spain, but near the east coast of the U.S. This news was completely contrary to his 50-year-old beliefs, but the evidence was so strong that it was impossible to deny. Divers showed photographs of some of the items recovered from the submarine, including personal belongings, technical equipment, and a knife on which the name of Georg Horenberg was engraved. Georg was a sailor whom Herbert knew. Ritchie and his colleague John Chatterton, who later wrote the book Shadow Divers, along with Robert Curson, recalled talking to Herbert. Herbert confirmed that the sailor Horenberg was indeed on U-869. He also remembered the crew, their training, and the atmosphere of the days before the submarine departed. He was unable to go on that mission due to his illness. There was no great drama, no last-minute decision, no official stopping him. He was simply replaced due to medical fitness, and the submarine left without him. When asked what he thought of the discovery, Herbert was emotional but composed. He said he was lucky to have survived the incident, which was strange in itself, but also expressed the pain of losing his old comrades. Herbert never wanted to make a big deal or talk at length. He preferred to stay away from the media. Still, he stayed in touch with divers and writers who were working on the story of U-869. His memories and information helped establish the identities of crew members and also confirmed German records. This revealed some very important information about the submarine's last crew. Herbert died in 2005, and it seems he never knew about the hidden room. Or maybe he did but didn't say anything about it. What do you think? Let us know in the comments.